credits roll. All is in place. 4, 3, 2.
Hey guys,
Hello,
it's Leo, from the community manager, and
Konstantinos, the lead writer.
so
I don't know why I'm here.
you're here because there are a lot of things that people are asking.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of questions, not just rules-wise, but there were a lot of questions about how are we envisioning certain things as Conquest goes on, and big part of that is how it ties in with the lore and how some of the decisions that we've made tie in with the existing lore.
Oh, so fluff is important, is it?
A little bit. I get it, yeah. They always tease me about that, but I read everything.
He does.
Most
He has a very certain wide interpretation of things.
of certain parts
but
of
he
Conquest
does
lore.
read them.
So before we begin, I'd like to say a few things. A week ago, we called you out to ask us any questions that you've had. The new companion book is out. Really excited about
The
that.
camera is there.
The new companion book is out, right? So very excited about that. There's over 100 pages of dedicated to lore and art, and we are very happy that we were able to bring all this to you. Of course, a lot of credit goes to the team, and for that, we might need this for this, but now it's gone.
Fine.
Oh, now it's gone too quickly. So.
Oh, small disclaimer. This is sparkling water, not beer. Just because we had a misunderstanding during one of the recordings of the session.
Never drink and film.
When I heard a very panicked, Konstantinos, are you drinking? I'm like, no, it's sparkling water. What are you talking about? But, yeah.
So yeah, we saw that you had a lot of questions about the new edition, and of course, when new rules are added into the game, there's always, there's room for interpretation. There are certain things you would like to clear out. And we thought the best thing that we could do is to take a video, answer some of the questions that you've asked us on Discord. But this is not just going to be one FAQ. What we're going to do is that we're going to address some more of the most general questions right now, about the direction of the game, about what it is that comes out later in terms of rules, and so on. And we're going to also do FAQs with our design studio as well, with our rules design studio, that we're going to be going into more in-depth questions. So we asked you to post your questions, and you did. Quite a few we have today. So I think it's
Okay.
It's great.
Let's start with our professional outfit.
All right.
So, JMS,
okay.
he's asking, as a design team, do you have any thoughts as to how the rules should support the visuals of the gameplay? I.e., larger units tend to look nicer on the table. Would you make design decisions to promote that?
That's a great question.
That's a great question that neither of us is really...
No. It's it is true that many times, when you're in the process of designing rules and when you're designing the miniature, especially in the designing of the miniature, you're not just looking at the miniature as a single entity, but it's very important that you're aware of how it looks when it's grouped up as a regiment. And
on the table in general.
That's right.
And it's also true that larger kind of units tend to draw the eye more. They are eye drawers, it's only natural that you want them to be spectacular. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're more spectacular than the smaller units. It's just that they're easier to spot, I think. And I think that's kind of the philosophy that we go to. We want each model to be beautiful at what it is. We want it to stand out for what it is, but of course, a bigger miniature is easier to spot and easier to admire. At least at first glance, when you pick those up, I think you'll see that we try to be very balanced in that sense.
But when it comes to the rules and how the rules are intertwined with those aesthetics, I think they're very much so. For example, one of the things that we've done is that we wanted to make sure that things like standard bearers and leaders are viable options, because they are these different miniatures that really make the regiment stand out. A nice regiment standard bearer always adds to the unit. And that's one of the reasons, for example, why we have these separate miniatures command upgrades. You have this a drill master sternly shouting at the Steel Legion. I don't know how smart of a decision it is to shout like that to the Steel Legion, but they're very disciplined. I think they respect
He
rank.
has something of steel too.
Yeah. So yeah.
Out of curiosity, what's your favorite banner? For me, it's like I think it's the Household Knights. I love that ever since I saw it in concept. I love it how it looks on the table.
I think I have a favorite for different regiments. I think I absolutely love Household Knights. I agree. I love Hold Thanes and Dragon Slayers.
Yeah.
And I like it as a model and the way that it's put together. I like how the cloths are intertwined and they go. I really love the way it looks. So I think this is one of my favorite banner that kit. But yeah, to answer the question, JMS, rules take aesthetics into account. It's very important that we address that, and it's very important that we make things that add to the regiment's aesthetic and make it a viable option in game, like the standard or the leader.
Okay, next question.
Yes.
So, Sparkar. Hey man.
This is Andy. Andy, our Vanguard.
He's one of our favorite people, I think. For me,
he was a Vanguard before Vanguard.
Yeah, because Vanguards were a thing. That's very true. Anyway, he's asking, when can we expect to see release dates for the next factions? Is Rally intended to be a mandatory action when broken? So, 2 points.
So 2 points. So, first of all, where can you expect to know more about the release of the new factions? Now, since we've been demoing and going to expos for a while now, but in reality the game is very new. It's very young. It's less than a year at this point. And right now...
About a year, actually, now.
It was July when we launched, and it's about a year. And usually we would be a lot closer to the release of the new factions, but with the whole pandemic thing going on and lockdown, a lot of variables have changed. Thankfully, the way that we are set up and the way that we've planned things allowed us to circumvent a lot of those difficulties. So we are very thankful that we are at a very good spot right now. But at this point, our very first objective is to populate the existing factions. So, for example, we have a lot of Nord releases scheduled. Very soon, we're going to be seeing Household Guard. We're going to be seeing Gilded Legion and Huskarls. That's very important. It's something that the Nords are lacking right now. Having a strong medium regiment. And so we want to start releasing information soon, but I think what's important to know is that we put on our top priority populating the existing factions and making it, giving you a lot of choices that you can play in tournaments and make competitive lists with. And the other question is that is Rally intended to be a mandatory action when broken? So
that's called yes.
Actually, this is a little bit that kind of segues into a little bit about how we think of the game, because we've thought of both. In one way, we wanted when a regiment is broken, we wanted to hinder its ability, but at the same time, we believe in risk-reward sort of relationship. We have also thought that it's fine if you act while broken, but you take the absolute risk of them being broken again with a single attack or something and then getting shattered and your regiment absolutely being destroyed and leaving the table. Right now, broken is not mandatory. Rallying is not mandatory. But there are a lot of things to consider here, and as we're moving on with some rounds of balance updates, this might be revisited.
Are you satisfied with your answer?
Yes.
Can we move to the next one?
Yes.
So, this is one of our vanguards. I can't read.
Paranoid.
Paranoid.
I recognize the avatar.
How do you feel about some of the weaker warlords getting additional mainstay choices in addition to their supremacy abilities? For example, a noble lord getting Household Knights as a mainstay, or a shaman warlock getting Huskarls. That is one part. The second part is any word on the faction-wide abilities. If those are not in 1.03, when will we be seeing those? Are they going to be extremely minor buffs or game changers?
I think the first part of the question concerns both of us in a way,
Yeah.
because the options of mainstay and restricted, going back to the aesthetics that we were talking earlier before, they're drawn from the relationship of that character to that regiment
Exactly.
in lore.
As we saw with the Face Priest, that there was kind of a discussion about it rules-wise. There was a platform on it lore-wise for this to happen. And since the two were married, we went ahead and do it. I think you can expect similar things with other characters and their mainstays. It will depend also on your choices, not only on your feedback as gamers, but also on some of your choices you might have in the future.
Because that's a little foreshadowing of certain things.
Wink, wink. Wink, wink.
But I'll tell you there are many ways in which we can balance a character game wise. First of all, of course, it has to do with the amount of abilities that we give them. I think that Noble Lord, with the new changes in master race and retinues, they can be pretty devastating right now. And so I wouldn't really say that they were one of the weaker warlords. However, we are interested in buffing the strength of those that have lagged a little bit behind, and make sure they fit its faction's theme and represent that faction better. So, any word of the faction-wide abilities?
Yeah.
This is a great point, because as you've noticed now with version 1.03. Right now we added retinues and so on. The next step into the development of the game, and we really take small steps, really trying to make it work along the way, is to allow each faction to have its own set of, let's say, faction special rules. Yeah. At some point, what we really want to do is that we want to allow you to be able to pick a sub-theme within a faction. Let's say with the Spires you want to play the Directorate, or the Under Spires. Under Spires is going to be really cool. And in order to do that, going back to what Andy Sparker asked, it's very important to prioritize populating factions, so eventually we can get there and give you enough options to play with these sub-themes. I think that's very important. So yeah, eventually we're going to reach that point that you're going to get these additional abilities.
Minor buffs or game changers?
That's minor. Game changers, I would say yes, but in the way in which it gives the faction more character, that it brings it closer to the lore, right? And that's always what we're trying. We want a faction to play as advertised, like we say. What you read on the book, on a short story, on the lore is what you can experience in game. That's very important for us.
Next question by Silva.
Silva is one of our newer vanguards, actually. I'm very happy to have him on board.
Hi, Silva. Welcome on board. The blood before the signature on your contract. Thank you. It's more effective. More effective for the purposes we have in mind. So, even if a mounted noble lord has a shield on his mini, he still stands with D3 in a duel. Is that intended? The Lord on Foot Supremacy ability, he's a bit off, because you get only half of the effect. Same question, is that intended?
So definitely there is a little bit of a difference between how the Mounted Lord and the Infantry Noble Lord play, given mostly the fact that there is different regiments they can join, and the Infantry Lord has access to retinue, whereas the Mounted Noble Lord doesn't. And it's important that the Mounted Noble Lord gets a little bit more out of the Supremacy ability to compensate on the fact that it has less abilities. However, of course, you can always go for Arms Master and things like that and make the Mounted Noble Lord like an absolute beast with Cleave 2. And that always helps, in charging. But yeah, it is intentional. And going back to the sealed and not using it in a duel, it really goes back a little bit to the aesthetics. We felt that, first of all, the outkit of a Noble Lord on mounted would look like a Household Knight, because essentially this is what it is being represented there. And so having it sealed and not having it on the actual model creates a little bit of an aesthetic dissonance there. We felt that a defense of 3 is good enough on duel rather than having a defense of 4. We feel that the Mountain Noble Lord is where it should be in terms of stats in duel. So yeah, it is intentional and it is there, to please very slight aesthetic things and to tell you that there is a duel. And you never know later on what other changes might happen when it comes to how characters interact with each other and how they fight. So
true. Also, I think it also gives, if you think that doesn't kind of resonate properly for you, go ahead, mod it. Do your own thing. No, I actually like we've seen some very interesting modifications on our models, and I really like
conversions, converted, yeah.
I really like that. So if you find that something doesn't, really does it for you for what you have in mind,
aesthetically,
yeah, change it, go nuts, and then post about it. Show us.
Show us your painted miniature and conversion. So that's
show us.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think we've covered this. Yes. So, Odin 54. Does the character have to be on the board for a draw event to occur, or can it be used the turn their card gets added to the command stack? Specifically, the event double time, fire in advance, red dress ranks, and seize the day, where it just says draw the next card and the ability activates if it's the character's regiment.
That's a very good question. As a rule of thumb, you need to be on the table in order to activate a draw event, right? And that's very important. So overall, the answer is yes. You have to be on the table unless otherwise stated, and it's very important because you need to have, you need the character to be played. First of all, of course, they need to be able to come from reinforcements, right? So otherwise, it wouldn't be on the command stack to begin with. And even if it is its turn to come from reinforcements, you would need to first bring the regiment the character is in, and then activate the card. Most of the times that means that, a lot of draw events have this ability that you draw the card and they say draw the next card, and if the character is attached to that regiment, then it activates. That is somewhat intentional because we do not want every single ability to be used right when you come in, right? This is, for example, why we don't allow for charges when you first enter the table. There are some things like that. Of course, we are thinking of a few minor balances to that, and we're gonna release more information about that.
So, Callus, are there thematic or balance constraints that prevent Lineage Highborn from upgrading to be in a cavalry avatar body to join units of center avatar down the track?
I think game-wise, I understand the question. It's when you do the avatar projection, you have a character now that is a brute, whereas the center avatar, let's say, is cavalry. However, later on, we would like to offer rules and options in which you can really customize where your characters would attach to, and that's one of the things. And customizing is one of the many pros of Spires. I mean, that's really what they do. They customize life.
That's very true. Now, lore-wise, the rule-wise has been explained. Lore-wise, there are constraints. If I understand the question in the same kind of concept, that if, let's say, the exile that uses the Highborn Avatara transfers into a center Avatara mid-battle, in a way, there are constraints to the Avatara designs. You can't just jump from one to the other. Practically, it would also be kind of impossible, especially if you're thinking of a unit that is already on the field and engaged, because that unit until then would be, let's say, empty in a way. It would be a mindless drone. It wouldn't be able to perform and follow the rest that are actually have someone there guiding them. So I'd say that such a change mid-battle would be both maybe not impossible. I mean, the Spires do understand their bodies in a very versatile manner, but even that, the immediate transfer from a two-legged kind of giant into a centaur being wouldn't be very
And
I think they're like it would be. I don't want to say the term that comes to mind, but
yeah.
it would mess with your mind.
But wouldn't you say though that these are, let's say, these suits, you know, for a Spire are also a little bit, you know, how they see themselves fighting in a sense. Like it's a little bit of a prized possession. It's something that
It is
something that they own, and if they just leave it as an empty husk, they essentially pretty much invite any sort of damage to it. It's almost like just leaving a perfectly usable tank like in the middle of the battle.
I get it, and it's not only a tank. I mean, they decorate them. They put the fancy hair and everything. They want to.
It's a little bit.
It's a show off.
It's a little bit of a representation of their is a slight narcissism thing.
Slight.
Slight. And I think that's a very good reason why they wouldn't just leave it as an empty husk. I think that's, you know, a little bit of a projection of
I think that if it came down to survival,
yeah,
that would be countermanded very easily. Lore-wise, you could always think of a kind of scenario where, I start as a centaur, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
I do the charge, I break the lines, then I jump back to my other to finish the job and kind of cleave through them. But there are constraints. There are constraints in the avatar designs. They can't really. Theoretically, I guess they could operate as empty husk, possibly like mindless drones in a way, but their design is so much more elegant and at least looks fragile. It's not really fragile, but so much more elegant and requires so much more coordination than the moves of a drone that this practically would not make any sense.
It's a weapon system.
Yeah, it's a weapon system.
It has its limitations.
It's like saying, will I send the sword out on its own? No, you won't. It won't do much.
If you throw it, someone might get hurt, you know, but but that's pretty much
a very limited effect.
Yeah.
So I'd say that especially mid-battle, no. Now, if the same exile could project into one avatar or another avatar, that's a whole other question that would go a little too deep into the avatar designs, and for now, let's leave it at that.
Yeah, but it's good.
It's
a very interesting question, and it's one of those opportunities that we get to really discuss how the lore affects gameplay and vice versa. And actually, most of the lore affects our gameplay, and how we are trying to really, you know, implement these restrictions. I wouldn't say real life, but quote unquote
realism.
Yeah,
realistic quote unquote.
That, you know, an actual Spire would face in the middle of a battle. So that's a great question. Thank you for that.
Or would face through.
Or face through something.
Through something because hello.
Yeah, because they're never there. Yeah.
So VBS. Do you plan on selling movement trays bases separately? 2 question marks.
Yes. It's
very simple.
Very
yes,
simple,
and we're not that far off.
And very soon, actually.
Yeah, very soon.
Yeah.
Very soon. Currently, all infantry characters do not include their corresponding tray, which is somewhat inconvenient if you do not have the spare one. I'm aware 3D printing, MDF and such is a possible solution, but not always practical, nor the trays would be uniform, i.e. less good looking. Selling a few in batches would be most welcome. Well, you're welcome.
Yeah. and it's something that we really wanted to do.
From the get-go.
From the get-go, and we understand that there were certain difficulties that did not allow us to do it at that point. But right now, we want to make sure that we provide you packs of bases. Let's say in packs of 3. Let's say for infantry stands, you can get a pack of 3 and 12 bases like you would get with any regiment, right? Or 3 brute/cavalry bases or a monster stand that you can use it, you know, to have your regiments, your characters, your retinues, whatever it is you want to use it on. And we want to do it as cheaply and as affordable as we can do it for you. That's very important. In the past, I've seen some great creations, you know, with 3D printed ones, and we've seen some great ingenuity from your part. But we understand, of course, that first of all, you shouldn't need to do that, and second of all, that even if you print out, you know, there's a lot of cost to that. We just want to provide it to you for, you know, for a low price, and make sure that you have as many as you need. So yeah. Question. Good news. It's yes.
It's yes. Darkfine. I'd like some insight on missions. What the plan is with them. Are they fine now? More being added? Will 6x4 see a more common spread? aside from some concerns about magic, that is my number one concern.
Perfect question. We're going to talk a little bit about magic as well. But first of all, regarding missions, the missions that you will see on the basic rulebook are there to familiarize players with the game. Now, a lot of people that have played the game, they have seen the game before it was released. They got the rules day one. And there are a lot of very proficient players at this point that they really understand how the game works and they're ready for more complicated missions and competitive play. However, what we try to do on the basic rules is that we want to provide you with a framework in which to learn the game. So that's why they're very, some of the scenarios are simplified. There's only one 6x4 scenario, and so the full-on tactical play that you would find in a competitive Conquest match is not really being represented there. What will happen though is to have a separate missions pack that will also help us out and serve us for competitive play as well, which at that point you'll see Conquest as we envision it to be played competitively. Right now, what we want to do is that we want to really polish the rules as much as we can, and as soon as that happens, right, we want to make sure that we'll give you the competitive and the competitive maps and missions.
And that polishing happens, on the act. Like, we constantly get feedback from you, such as this. Like, even what we're doing now, we constantly get feedback from you. We go through it, evaluate it. Is there a point there? Would this mess something else? So this is a very live thing. It always expands. So when we say polish, we mean that it will, of course, still possibly change in the future, but at least we will be completely satisfied that this is a very, very solid base to move forward. Mm-hmm. So it may sound that, yeah, but this can go on forever. Of course, there is a certain point where we say. And there's also other ways to bring new kind of missions into play.
That's true. It's very important, when we are testing out new missions as well and new rules, to keep some things, to have some standards, some things that are stable. So if we know that the rules are performing the way they should, now we can take a pause there and start working on how they interact with maps and missions and competitive play, and then start and cross balance them. But we cannot be polishing rules and at the same time trying competitive play. So that's exactly because we've taken your feedback and we're trying to do the best of that we can when it comes to that. And a lot of the things will be polished. So to answer the question, 6x4 is going to be a thing. We want to make sure that we provide you with more scenarios like that. 6x4 might require a little bit of a different way in which reinforcements operate. There might be a few changes, but hopefully, these changes can be done on the way, you score in these particular missions rather than on the core rules of the game. We wouldn't want to do that. But yeah, there are more things coming. There are a lot of maps and 6x4 gameplay styles coming up.
When?
You'll never get me alive. I'll never tell you.
So, next one, Dashun or Dashun, I don't know. Would be, is that us?
Probably.
Okay. Consider opening more avenues for communication with the community. You want our numbers? Like,
I mean, I'm free tonight.
Want to grab a drink? This is sparkling water.
That's a great question, because we might be joking a little bit about this right now because we're actually doing a video on it. But things like this very video, things like trying to do regular Q&As are our way of being in touch with you. And right now, like we've said many times, we're a very young company, but we are experienced enough gamers ourselves to understand what kind of communication works best and what doesn't. And so we believe that, for example, videos like this in this format, that we take your questions and we answer them. FAQ, posts that we want to be doing that are going to come up based on the questions that you've asked, because right now it's very hard to, there was a lot of discussion going on in the Q&A thread, so not everything was a clean question to just copy paste it and address it. We're going to be doing posts about it that we're going to be writing and explaining to you why we did certain things, and we're going to be doing more videos, talking about the decision and why certain things work in the way that they do. And so by doing so, we're hoping of opening new ways of communication, and we'll always be trying to find new ways to reach you and get feedback from you, and that's very important. So we invite you to always ask us questions. We invite you to be active on social media. We are very active on social media, and we want to make sure we learn from you.
And if I may, make suggestions. If you think that a platform would work better than, say, Discord, we find Discord very practical for many reasons, but
it's hard many times, to always be on it. So, for example, it's a lot easier for us to have, let's say, a format that works like what we did now, that we could create a specific thread.
Yeah.
You ask your questions, and we draw from that. That's a lot easier. We will be finding ways to make that work, because as the community grows, and it has grown a lot.
Yeah.
Right now, we've come out.
Thank you guys.
We've come out of lockdown with a larger community
that we went into.
And that's insane, given that no stores were open. Right, with all these limitations, we grew as a community, and right now, sometimes it gets really hard to filter through all that input and all that discussion.
That is true.
So we're always looking for ways in which to clear this line of communication and get all your feedback to us.
And I will also say this, that one of our favorite methods of communication is actually direct, like when we come and talk to you guys and you visit us at shows and stuff like that. Of course, this year things are very iffy on that front, and for good reason. I would, my personal. But that is something that we want to expand on when we get the opportunity. But for now...
And there's another big news that we've established right now, is that to our head of designs, you can email him directly at Konstantinos. It's a long name, don't worry, we'll put it in the description below.
I'm not doing it.
At Bellum.com. Not this Konstantinos.
Not me.
Yeah, our other Konstantinos that has been working on...
It's a very rare name.
Yeah, in Greece. Yeah, that's true. That he's the head of that department, and you can email directly. And within a few work days, you can get an answer, or you can, acknowledge that we've gotten your feedback, and we will be taking into consideration and see what we can do with that. But we cannot get more direct than that.
Yeah, and again, you can use any of our social media to send us a direct message. I think we have a good response time overall, but if there's some waiting, I think it's only natural. We thank you for being patient with us. As we said, the community kind of exploded to a certain degree in the past few months, so we're catching up, but I think we're doing a good job.
Yeah, we're trying to answer to as much as we can ourselves.
Yeah.
Rather than just have a poor intern needing to answer
Minions.
rather than
No, so, that's not a politically correct term. Not minions.
So with overalls and stuff, isn't it?
Oh God.
So we're trying to answer to as many things as we can ourselves. We want to have a clear line of communication with us. So.
I think that's kind of from our own gamer experience, that we would love to talk to the people that actually design. We would love to talk to the people that actually write. We would love to talk to the people that actually play the game in the company. So that's what we're trying to provide. So it might take a little more time, sometimes, not always though. Sometimes it might take a little more time, but we think it's kind of worth the wait, So.
And when shows start happening again, please come and find us, ask us
everything. Certainly.
Perfect. So a lot of things, that small question, but that was a lot of things to talk about.
Yeah, that's very true.
Okay.
So, again.
He asked another question.
Yeah, I know. Why do you have two of him?
Oh yeah, he's a bot. Everybody gets a bot.
Are you guys planning on doing a change log with future rules updates? That way we can quickly find all the differences between 102 and 103.
Within every book, we've hidden a small drone. And if you find it, just kidding.
Click on it and it takes you to the secret.
To the secret chain.
Small parenthesis here that we actually thought about. We wanted to do
This
that.
was, yeah, we
But
like,
it was a bit technically difficult.
yeah. However, about the changelog, we will always want to have a changelog. That's part of our plan. What we wanted to do is to bring the game up to a certain point, after which it would be a lot easier for us to start tracking changes and so on. And there, but what I can tell you for sure is that after version 1.03, every change that happens will be kept in log. Right, so at this point on, because we're at the point that we want with our characters and with the retinues and how that system works, everything else that is added or changed in terms of point, in terms of everything, will be changelog. Because one of the other changes that we want to start doing is now start balancing the thresholds for the spells and what you need to be rolling and how many dice and so on. So these all are changes that will be being tracked down, and you'll be able to find it, on our website, on the rules and tactical posts and so on. So yeah.
In the meantime, and while we don't want to kind of pass the burden, but in the meantime, there are members in the community that do exactly that, and they do an amazing job.
We are blessed to have people like Vanguard Oticus that he's done on his Underspire. He did a change log, and we're very surprised. Very. First of all, he's been doing great work always,
overall.
right? So I'm not surprised that he did it. Like, but I'm like, he never ceases to amaze me. So a big thank you to Oticus and all this great work. The content that he produces, it's great. And this is a little bit, of how we envision Vanguards going in and creating that community. We want Vanguards to be more than just passionate players, which is great on its own, but we want to give the opportunity to people to become content creators, community leaders, community builders, and expand, their skill set and do new things, and have Conquest be a platform for that. So yeah, you can head on underspire.net. He's done some great work on that, but our plans will always that to do after version 1.03 to have a changelog after that. So you're going to be seeing a lot more of that.
Yeah. Oh no. Jedi Luke 69, possibly. Jedi Luke. Jedi Luke. Took me a while. Oh god.
This is going in the video. This is not
we wanted you to see these. So, Jedi Luke 69, Kira Nagisho. Why is it that biomancers can take arcane masteries, but they don't have schools of magic unless you can give them a school through them? Looking at learned in the occult.
So, two questions in there.
Parenthesis. Remind me learned in the occult.
What's that?
I don't know. It says looking at
learn
in the occult.
Learning the occult is a mastery.
There we go. That's what I remember. It's something.
It's one in the mastery. It's in the core book. It's not part of an army book, and it's one of the general masters that are given to it. That is being that's being available to everyone. So, Biomancer can take arcane masters. At this point, the arcane is a little bit of a placeholder, not a placeholder word, but it's a general term at explaining, something that is neither of a physical nature, that it's not something you're not fighting with it, fists, claws, whatever a spire or not would have, and it's not tactical either, in the sense that it does not represent a sort of strategic aptitude or certain strategic prowess. So arcane is a little bit, a word used from a human perspective.
There is a connection in the way those kind of magics, let's say, work, and they do differ from the faith magic. So it is a very used term that covers a lot of area. When you say arcane, you mean more than one thing. Now, in a way, one could interpret this that biomancy is sort of a school of magic. It's not. It's its own thing, and a human could not really tap into that, not easily. On the other hand, we do know historically, and especially if you have read through our wonderful Conquest companion, that
if you know the page that he's talking about, comment below.
They could look it up. That can never be like objective. I don't understand this.
Whoever does it first.
Whoever looks faster.
Go down.
So, you would know that the Old Dominion, for instance, had a distant relationship with biomancy. Distant meaning that they had tools for it, and no.
That's interesting.
Have you not read this? You have homework.
Maybe not.
Back to you, sorry. I will scold him later. But there, you can perceive it as, in a much broader sense, as another school of magic. It's very different. A human's access to it would be limited to next to zero, if not zero. But in a way, it is a school of magic. On reverse now, the exiles and the magic that humans use, those that we typically divide into schools, again there is a distance. That an exile would never really excel in human magic, let's call it that. Could never excel. It is the very nature of their being that is naturally imbalanced in the exiles, while in the humans, this imbalance in itself creates the foundation through which magic can be used. So there is a connection there, because as we have explained, and I don't mind saying it again, that magic is an imbalance essentially. So the Spires can, but they already kind of do. They are predisposed towards a certain school of magic, let's put it this way. Even though, again, I use this term broadly right now. And the humans could also, again, through that imbalance, if their imbalance, their specific imbalance kind of favors that type of magic that the exiles use, there could be a limited connection there. Now the question is, why don't humans take biomancies in that regard?
I think when you say
No. There is a reason.
No, I think, from a lore perspective, it's a little bit, sometimes to me, when I was first reading about the Spires, it was always a little bit of a question, like, where does it stop being science, and where do you draw the line between the two, and that's what makes it a little interesting.
That is, well, I can tell you exactly when it started. When the biomancers started actually going away from the old type of natural magic that the exiles had, the life binding. Anyway, I hope this answers your question. I know there are no specific lines to be drawn here, so I can, tell you this is as far as one goes, this is as far as the other goes, this is why it's a school of magic, but I hope you understand kind of the concept and the loose relationship between the two. And this, again, is, both of those are in a way very different than faith. Faith, while magic, is its own thing.
And game-wise, when it says whether you can take throughout the school, first of all, learning the occult, that means that the different school you can choose is from the same faction. And the other thing is, biomancy and ferromancy, in terms of gameplay, could be considered as two different schools, in the sense that there could be augmentations that will allow one to create, pheromones that will allow a certain kind of commands.
That is an interesting clarification, though. So, a biomancer could not take, let's say, a fire spell from.
No, you would work within the same faction.
Rules clarified.
So yeah, so for example, with the learning the occult, a biomancer can, gameplay-wise, get a ferromantic ability.
Lore-wise, I explained between the two factions, the different factions in schools of magic.
Yeah.
When I say explained, I said
and there's an insane miniature being developed right now that is
yeah.
that has certain. That is a biomancer, and
the sedan.
Yes, the literal. I brought my own right to battle, supreme.
The sedan. There's no need to go into more
that
detail.
has certain capacities, and shows how they could use some ferromantic abilities.
I happen to hear this term today used by the concept artist about, well, he's doing the sedan, and I'm like, what? What is the sedan? You'll see. It's beautiful. Next question. Pretor Dragoon. Hashtag eruptions for everyone. Check our Facebook feed. That's all I have to say. Because we actually communicated with the sorcerers, telling them that, the eruption spell might have to go through some changes. Leo will say more, but I don't know if you want to, because this is how they reacted.
何
Do you want to be against that?
From now on, 7 hits for Stan. 10. Well, sky's the limit. 12, 14, doesn't matter. As long as we're fighting. As long as we've been bullied by our sorcerers here. It's been a hassle. No, but definitely Eruption was something that needed to be addressed, and so we are going to be looking into nerfs. I've posted in there.
We're going to revisit.
We're going to be revisiting it. We don't want. Where are they again?
I don't know.
And so I posted the other day, some things that we're consider doing it. That's not final, so don't worry. At the end of the day, there's going to be testing, to see which one we're going to go with. But definitely, Eruption was a point that had to be addressed, and it's important for us, it's important for us for you to know that we're listening, and if there is such an issue, we're gonna go and address it and do our best to fix it. And so at this point, there's gonna be a patch version for that.
Paranoid Hocklet.
These bots, man.
Does Tier 3 of Mastery of the Flesh allow you to resolve the same draw event twice?
No, it is for 2 different draw events. And for example, another great example is that we've realized that if something is not clear enough, sometimes a lot of going back to the rules is to make sure that that to communicate well what we have in mind for a rule. That's a hard work. That requires a lot of work to do that. But it's very important to have clarifications like that. So that's one of the clarifications that would take place.
Guess who?
He was posting one by one. He was posting really good questions, and actually, one of the things that we were talking about, a lot of the Vanguards, sent me questions that they've heard from their community.
Yeah.
So that's very important because a lot, they do online hangouts, they do a lot of stuff, and they're talking with their group, and they taking their questions and bringing them directly. So I really appreciate it. Thank you, Paranoid Hawklet, for a lot of good questions.
So, this kind of connects to the previous one. Also, any plans for new missions or updates to current missions, especially Breakthrough?
Yeah. So, to take it a little bit further and discuss something that we didn't talk before, the basic missions will also change a little bit as well, because we want to make sure that once we have the competitive rule pack out, and once we have the more competitive missions out, we want to make sure that the missions that are in the core book are more geared towards guiding a new player and gently pushing new players towards understanding how competitive Conquest will work. So we are seeing we'll see a separation of the two, and you'll see pretty much how we more specifics about that.
Dashoon, does each tier of a retinue count as a separate model? Like for a chapter mage, I want to possibly get tier 2 magic and tier 2 tactical, so I can pick up eccentric. Is that possible?
So, great question, because it's a very good segue a little bit into the changes that we've made with this new edition and how retinues work, and that's a whole chapter on its own. This week we're gonna have an article talking about how retinues work and masteries, and more specifics about that, and that's part of our plan to communicate the changes better and make sure that we develop around those. So, to answer the question, each tier of a retinue is a separate model. So, a chapter mage, for example, sitting on its stand would have 3 empty spaces left. So, if you take, let's say, a tier 2 magic, that would mean that you will need 2 miniatures to signify tier 1 and tier 2 magic. And that means that you wouldn't be able to go up to tier 2 tactical because you would only have 1 spot left. So, you would only be able to go up to tactical 1. So the concept here is, that retinues can be attached to infantry characters because that's the ones that, are able to do that. And different retinue tiers allow for certain things. So, for example, you wouldn't be able to use a banner. That's one of the differences in the book that we've we've separated the kinds of equipment, right? So you wouldn't be able to field a banner unless you have a tier 1 tactical. Essentially, you have your lord, and then you have a standard bearer, right? So you're going to have a noble lord with regalia of the empire or with a standard of steel. A lord wouldn't carry their own banner. They would have a, they would have a minion with jean overalls to carry their banner around. Going back again, to how rules affect aesthetics. That's always something you'll find this theme recurring.
I think in many discussions that we've had about how we make a new product, I'll put it this way, is exactly, it is very often, let's look at the rules, how can we make this look cool?
Yeah.
I think it is like, how can we make this look cool is a thing that is asked repeatedly when we discuss designing things. And if you need a banner, make it look cool. If you want, let's say the tier 2, any tier 2, it has to be, if you want it to look like a tier 2 again, you have to make it look cool.
Yeah, and it's important for you to know that there are going to be miniatures that will be, you can use in order to represent those. And also you can use command upgrades, and you'll notice that the command upgrades, they have a specific theme. So for example, the new drill master is there for a tactical, right, is there as a tactical tier. Then for example, if you want to add a standard bearer, you can always of course convert your own and then add a soldier, with a banner.
And again, they're so cool. Yeah. We've seen already some kind of concepts of characters with their own bases that they could even be immediately, they can be like translated into retinues.
But for those that don't want to do that, and they want all the cool minis, because that's what happens. Tiers are going to have their own miniatures, right? That will allow you to use them and upgrade them as you like. So you'll be able to get them. But until then, if you want to use something different, if you want to change it up a little bit, like Assault Preceptor, Drill Master, Seasoned Veteran, all these different things can be used to signify something different. As always, we love seeing conversions as well, so go for it.
Does Plague Lord cause morale? I'm not even saying who's asking now. We all know who it is.
I have about 7,000 bots out there.
Does Plague Lord?
I don't know if we have a single like from a real person. Just kidding. It's
all our vanguards are bots.
It's all bots. This is a project to feed my own narcissism. This entire thing.
This whole Q&A. I'm asking the questions. I'm giving the answers.
This will never even be published. This is just for me.
So, you know who asks, does Plague Lord cause morale? Also, does the blessed effect from the sacrificial lamb mastery last until the end of battle?
Quick question. Quick answers. No, and yes. Let's take it one by one. Plague Lord cause morale. So Plague Lord essentially is an ability of the Spires that allows decay to cause an additional wound. The thing is that the decay on its own specifically states that it does not cause morale. Right. So the question here, I believe, is whether that additional wound that it's being inflicted, can that be cause morale? And the answer is no. That +1 wound is there because of decay, and therefore, as decay does not cause any sort of resolve checks or resolve casualties, that additional wound doesn't either. So, sacrificial lamb. That's a great.
Explain to me.
Pretty much what happens is that when your character dies, regiments within 6 inches get the blessed special rule until the end of the battle.
What?
First of all, that character needs to be warlord.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Right. So, and you'll notice that that's very important because you'll notice that later on, you're going to be scoring points for destroying the warlord, right? And killing a warlord is a big deal. First of all, because of how the game overall balanced out in the sense that if a regiment dies, the warlord dice with them. And so if you have if you want to have the warlord in a strong regiment and suddenly you lose that strong regiment and the warlord, people around are going to be pretty pissed.
Yeah.
You probably will be pissed as well. as well. And trust me, other regiments will so too. And so they gain the blessed special roll until the end of the turn. It's not something that I would
Until the end of battle.
at the end of battle. Yeah, it's not something that I would like try and get my warlord killed or my character killed just to get the blessed rule, but it's definitely something to help you hanging in there, after taking such a loss.
Next question.
Yep.
VBS. Are you planning on releasing retinue models for each faction, type, and tiers? Or perhaps some upgrade sprues to represent retinues by converting existing models?
So, the first part of the question
I think that is a short answer. Yes.
Actually, the second part of the question has covers something different entirely, and that is whether we want to do upgrade kits.
Yeah.
Which is a great question, and the short answer is yes.
Yeah. Exactly.
Pretty much.
Yes.
First of all, because there are many sub factions. Yes.
Yeah.
So, for example, let's say the Force-grown drones. Let's say belonging to the Underspire or to the Director, and so on. They could have certain differences, but the most notable one would be simply 100 kingdoms from different kingdoms. Right, they would have different regalia. They would have sometimes different
cultural influences. In
they would
designs
have
and everything. Yeah.
They could be very different. So there are going to be eventually, upgrade kits that would change your army thematically. That does not mean that would make it a different unit, or different regiment rather. But it means that you can choose, let's say, to play with. And this is just I'm throwing it out there randomly. Let's say you could play with the King of Galania or Germania.
They're not kingdoms, Leo. They are provinces.
Are they really?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
In Stories of Conquest, I'm gonna make mine a kingdom.
The whole Germania is going to be a kingdom.
One kingdom. So check that out.
This is actually very interesting because when we were originally designing the 100 Kingdoms, this was actually a thing. Do we make the provinces hold more significance as kind of a unit in a way? And the short answer was no. There is a cultural connection based on the different kind of cultural groups that came from the Old Dominion and kind of moved together because of similar languages. There were more than one languages in the Old Dominion, of course, because there were more than one people living in the Old Dominion, and this has kind of expanded. So throughout Germania, people have many common characteristics, and depending on the kingdom, though they might feel strongly about that or not, but kings don't like sharing power. So unless you're the one that unites Germania, nobody else wants to unite Germania.
In the Nepenthe video, wasn't one of them was a king?
Yes, there are many kings though. He wasn't the king of. He was the king of Brandengrad, not of the entire Reichsmark. There were 11 kings in Reichsmark.
Yeah, but we all know who's a little better. My character.
We'll see.
Stories of Conquest.
We'll see. We have seen actually in the Nepenthe series, we saw that Frederick already kind of tries to unite Reichsmark, recognizing and under the banner of, oh my god, Nepenthe is attacking. And it's not going to discriminate between you and me. It sees a human, it's going to attack. It wants resources, guess who's next if he takes me out of the picture. But that doesn't really mean yet that Reichsmark is united. It means that some of its kings are cooperating. And Reichsmark specifically has a very strong tradition and a very strong feeling of belonging between them. They have the 11 steel thrones.
Yeah, it's good because this Q&A, it's all about version 1.03. There's a lot in this book apart from the new rules, and the reason we're getting so much into the lore as well is because this is as much of a lore discussion for the new book as much as anything else. Right now, this is pretty much more of a companion FAQ rather than most other things. Okay, so let's see our Or I think that
I
is
think
our
that's
last question.
yeah.
And you get my bot. Our bots. They were great questions, and the reason we selected some in that way is because they were very clearly stated and very.
I want to read this theatrically.
Go for it.
Is the wedge supremacy available to non-warlord noble lords and priory commanders? It says it exchanges their supremacy ability with wedge. So if they don't have a supremacy, can I still take it?
So short answer is that they don't necessarily need to be a warlord, but they necessarily need to have a supremacy ability. And I understand that seems a little off, but what happens is that sometimes certain abilities or certain items can provide you with a supremacy ability.
Yeah.
If that's the case, you can do it. Rule of thumb is that you need to have a supremacy ability in order to exchange it for wedge. If you don't have one, you cannot. Now, if there is a way in which you can get one
Without being the warlord.
then of course you could use wedge, but you need to make sure that this warlord has a supremacy ability.
Wedge!
Wedge. You need to.
There's
you
an
need to
exclamation mark. You have to portray this.
But it's not. I'm thinking of like a triangle, like.
Yeah, but you keep the command.
Is that the command for wedge?
I don't know.
We have
In one kingdom, I bet there is.
But they're not kingdoms. They're provinces.
No! Okay, very basic 100 kingdoms. Very basic
They're
100.
100.
No, they're more than 100. It's kind of a generalization. Are you though? Because if you look at the map, Hermania is like one of, I think about 10, 12. I can't remember by
Now,
heart.
do you
but-
understand why I'm banned from the writer's office?
Yeah.
Do you?
And that's nothing. So
Do you understand?
let's start with the basics. 100 kingdoms, yes?
Yes.
Can you picture it, the map?
I'm probably gonna conquer most of them. But
Oh, right, sure.
in Stories of
You-
Conquest, see my character rise.
I'm your storyteller there.
Yeah, but
Anyway, so 100 kingdoms. At some point in their history, they were united under the Telian Empire. All right. In that empire had divided the empire into provinces because that's how you
govern.
govern a very large area. Very large. Okay? Those provinces were loosely culturally united in a way throughout time, and even before there were certain elements that helped with the division into provinces. Of course, there are other reasons as well, but this is a very easy way to govern. You put similar people with similar needs and similar traditions and similar cultures and similar under one governing roof, let's say. In the provinces, there were kings. That they were all kings under the emperor. Well, yes and no. Some, like the Rus, the Polmag, they were more distant and they were kind of vassal states instead of actual kind of subjects to the emperor, but still. Today, those provinces mean very little, except for on paper for the imperial remnants and the chamberlain's office. Yes? People do remember them, people do acknowledge them as I'm going to Hermania, speaking geographically I'm going in that area, but in that area there's a bunch of kings, stronger, lesser, dukes, counts, even barons, but barons are usually someone's vassal or banner lords. Clear?
No, and I think that's there's a lot of things there, and part why we're joking about Stories of Conquest, that this is one of our ways, to be able to explore that.
Yeah, that's true.
Through the eyes of a character that is easier to relate to. So, and that's
Yes, and it would really help if you didn't constantly cause trouble and I had the opportunity to talk about those stuff more.
it's an RPG. If you don't cause trouble, you're not really playing. But the thing is, the point of the story is going back a little bit, to how opening up ways of communication. It's not just communication in terms of answering questions, but also ways of, channels of communications in order to
Bring us closer,
in
in a
order
way.
to bring us closer
Yeah.
and explain really what's going on in the world of Conquest.
Yeah.
Because there's so many things going on, and just text on a piece of paper is good, but sometimes it's just not always, as interactive and as...
I can't get behind that. Like, I'm literally a writer.
Well, I'm sorry to tell you, this is also the video that I have to announce to you. Now, all our lore is CGI from now on. That makes no sense.
Awesome! I can make CGI. I can write for CGI.
So, guys, these are our questions for today.
Yeah.
They're gonna be more articles, more blog posts coming up. Discussing some of the other things that you guys were talking about in Discord. There were a lot of discussions taking place in that Q&A, and we felt that there was no one just clear, solid question at times to pick up on and discuss upon. But there's definitely going to be a lot of points that will be discussed there. Part one being, and most important, being magic, and how that would be balanced, and how we're going to tackle that. We have an article coming right now explaining how the retinues and the masteries.
Kill the mages.
Kill the no more sorcerers from now on. No more dragon skin. We let.
Oi.
But yeah, there's all these different things that we're going to be releasing to make sure to let you know what is going to be balanced, how it's going to be balanced, coupled with a change log and explaining the changes as they're coming. So expect a lot of this kind of communication, and if you have questions or a different style of video or something, you can comment below. Leave a comment below. Let us know what you think.
Different people maybe like us.
More serious.
More serious people.
But yeah,
concentrate.
but definitely we want to have we want to be as interactive as we can with you, and we want to answer your questions the best that we can. So
that being said, I will also say that the companion, for all the product placement, all product placement aside, the companion in 1.03 came with a bunch of, let's say, new lore, which is kind of ironic because it's mostly about the history of all the factions. So it's old lore, but it's new.
We'll give it a prequel.
We kind of give the no. As we explain actually on the forward, I'd like to talk about this since this is about, in a way, about the companion. As we explained that we want, and we've talked about this before, we want the current history to involve you guys, and soon-ish, I think you will see the way that we have in mind for achieving this. So in the book, in the first lore book that we give you, let's say, we wanted to give you the foundation, the basis, something that we can't really change. We can maybe explore at times, but we can't really change. It's what's there. It's a foundation where our future stories, our future interactions, and our future campaigns, let's put it this way, will move. So feel free to ask about those things too. I mean, I really find what we have there about the Old Dominion and the rise of the Old Dominion, and Haslia, who is a very favorite and hated at the same time figure.
But yeah, as always, it's important that you know that the rules are always going to be for free online. So for those that didn't get the chance, to get a companion, so you can find the rules on our website. I highly suggest that you get the book. Not necessarily just because it's my job to positively encourage you to get that book, but it's 109 pages of lore and art in there, purely before we even get into the into the rules. And for me, that is something that you can look back in reminiscence of what the state of the game was. There are going to be changes, there are going to be updates in the rules. You can never really avoid that. And so that's why it's very important for us to give you something that is full of art, that is full of lore, and that you can look back into it and remember, when the game was after years. And that's one of the most great things, about collecting these books for me. The companion is something, and it was named companion, to something that you can keep with you for as long as as you're playing Conquest, and hopefully to keep with you as a really good piece of fantasy lore.
Yeah, man.
So thank you very much for.
No, wait. We have the poetry night thing now.
Well,
we'll read
right.
poetry.
We'll have an open mic. Open mic right now.
So do this, tune in, huge revelation, and they'll all be like, the next faction, let's see, and we'll just read poetry.
Random poetry.
Random poetry. Nothing to do with fantasy, conquest, anything.
So guys, thank you very much for joining us today. Expect a lot more of this kind of content. Expect a lot more of articles and things to read about. You'll find a lot of links in the description below, how to contact us, how to where in the links to find the rules and everything. And make sure you leave a comment below what it is that you'd like to see. If you have any more questions that you think that we did not cover, and we'll make sure we get back to you with them.
That's it.
Yep.
Bye, guys.
Signing out.